Dealing with an irritable wife is the title. But I think the topic is a little off, not really exactly that, but let's read it. Dear Rabbi Jacobson, I have been greatly perturbed about a subject matter for a while, and I have decided to ask for your guidance. My wife is a very nice, selfless person who uses her strength to raise our kids. She does have a very strong personality, seeing things very black and white. When she sees something is wrong in her perspective, she's very strongly repulsed by it. While those matters that she finds not to be that serious, she has very blah feelings towards. What's the big deal? This leads to her using strong words like evil, Rasha, Gehenim, etc., for those she finds to have done wrong by her or to others. And to matters in halacha and hashkafa that are not seemingly super important in her mind, is to be viewed very parav, often to my chagrin. As for her strong streak, quote unquote, while standing up for what is right is very admirable, and I find that our frum society sometimes has a tendency to poo-poo serious matters, I feel her midas are out of line. This leads to not only her strong words to others, but as well to me, her husband, when she does not like something I do or not do. She often cuts straight to my past, various deficiencies, and uses terms I am embarrassed to think about others, let alone say. I often am left deflated and depressed. Being as she is an active leader of the house, it is quite easy for her to then claim I am the lazy husband, as I close up for the evening with my despair after a few good ribbings, or after several mean texts throughout the day at work. I am nonchalantly told a task to do on the way back. I wanted to know what Chabad Chassidus has to say in regards to disagreeing with your wife in matters of halacha and midas. Is it the husband's lot to just deal with his wife as is, taking her behavior as a sign of his own flaws? Or is there a valuable way to tell one's wife that despite her great attributes, there are certain things needed fixing? For example, not to tell her negative opinions of me to my kids, or in a semi-public setting. And for example, to be insistent that the kids wash negelvasa prior to eating or doing other morning activities. Thank you so much for your classes, and for the very least letting me put my words down to ease my burden. I read this because we talk about this as the issues of life that people address, and I'm very, honored, but it's good to hear that people are open, because that's how you begin to solve problems. But at the same time, of course, you have to always realize that it's very difficult to answer a question like this without the people sitting in front of you. Because firstly, there's always two sides to every story. The husband's view, the wife's view. As they say, there's three sides to every story. The husband's perspective, and the true perspective. Not because anyone's necessarily being malicious, but because we're subjective. We see things a certain way. And so that's number one. Number two, even if you know the people, it's hard to talk about it in this theoretical way, because it is ultimately case by case. Because you want to solve the issue. You don't just want to give platitudes of answers that are just general and generic. Not yet, as I always say, I'll try my best to try to say a few key lines, and I think they're pretty obvious, but sometimes have to be spelled out. No human being on earth is perfect. No one. Talked before about perfection. Everyone has their flaws. So when there's a marriage, a good marriage doesn't mean that both couples are perfect, or one of them is perfect. It means that they're partners, and they're both wise enough and mature enough to understand that sometimes we complement each other. Sometimes one person has a strength the other one doesn't have. Sometimes one has a weakness the other doesn't have. When is it not a problem? When both understand that, and you can address an issue that in a nice, gentle way. Now, obviously, there are times we always can be very disturbed by someone, especially close to us, because you take for granted. It's not like with someone, a stranger, you're going to be more careful what you say. In a home, in a comfortable home, people are going to speak up and sometimes say things that are offensive. So what do you do with that? You have to find a way to communicate with each other about that issue and say, I want to sit down with you. I want to tell you that I think that what you said yesterday was offensive. Or, what others are able to do with a little bittle, you just get over it and don't say anything. That really depends what was said and whether it should be. Sometimes some things have to be overlooked. Because you have to look at the whole package, not at a detail. You're building a home. You have children. You have family. You're looking at the whole package. Is the whole package a healthy package? Then there may be there's things that are not. So you have to know how to ride and transcend them. If the whole life is suddenly being overtaken by negative energy and everything seems negative, then you have to go speak to somebody, a third party. So again, I don't know the extent here. Here it doesn't sound that it is that extent, because it seems like you speak very beautifully about your wife and say good things about her. But there seems to be, she's strong-headed in certain areas, black and white. And again, I don't know how you react to that and what you do with it. Do you just swallow it all? Do you fight with her about it? And what happens the other way around? Does she see you strong-headed? As I said, these are things I don't have answers to. So overall, my response is that that's the general healthy approach. Now, if you indeed establish that there's a certain midah that disturbs you, and it's a midah that's also destructive to your children, and so on, so there's a few ways to go. Sometimes the best way is not directly, because sometimes husband and wife talk about things directly, it's too close for comfort. Sometimes it may be through